Today we're going to continue taking an extended look at ATi's Radeon X1600 XT graphics card, this time with the game F.E.A.R, which actually released a week after the Radeon X1600 XT was released. What makes F.E.A.R interesting is how it previewed many now commonplace graphics technologies, as well as landmark physics-based effects to accentuate its breakneck FPS combat. Graphically, F.E.A.R populates its spooky atmosphere with Doom 3-like vertex shadows, advanced lighting, parallax-mapped impact marks, and some really stunning slow-mo effects. And of course, the top-notch AI is still among the best ever put into any game ever made. And while its system requirements were not all that crazy for the late 2005 timeframe, running F.E.A.R at its maximum settings required high-end hardware and was in fact one of the first games to support dual-core processors. Despite releasing just in time for F.E.A.R's PC release, the Radeon X1600 XT wasn't a high-end graphics card from the get-go, and does require one to lower F.E.A.R's graphical fidelity in order to enjoy it at 720p-like resolutions, or the 4x3 resolution of 1024x768. Luckily that does not mean minimum settings, but with a straight config of medium settings across the board, the X1600 XT provides a rather comfortable gameplay experience with this game. Some larger scenes with more enemies do experience a few drops below 30 FPS, but these are minor enough not to warrant any further tweaking of graphics options, at least not in my opinion. F.E.A.R's second act especially tends to involve more close quarters firefights that the X1600 XT manages to deliver without much trouble at all. As graphically impressive a title F.E.A.R was at launch, realistically it graphically straddled two generations of gaming consoles if we use consoles as a sort of representation of game graphical design across all platforms. The X1600 XT and the X1000 series itself was to be ATi's final generation of fixed function shader hardware, and were in fact the most advanced of their kind. But for a new generation of games that would take graphics well beyond F.E.A.R's visual excellence, the X1600 XT was well underpowered for the task, and it was underpowered running F.E.A.R at its maximum graphics settings. Ironically, one of F.E.A.R's weakest visual aspects is its textures, and because of that I do have maximum textures enabled in this footage you're seeing here, with trilinear texture filtering and the previously mentioned straight medium graphics configuration for everything else. One major problem you're likely seeing very easily in the footage is the massive amount of screen tear present without VSync. While enabling VSync would be a big help, the increased lag ruins the responsiveness, and personally in the heat of battle does not bother me. You might also find the lack of anti-aliasing a bit jarring, but once again, it doesn't really bother me all that too much. I've always considered anti-aliasing an icing on the cake bonus feature if I can run everything else maxed out, but you may feel different. When F.E.A.R first came out, I didn't even possess a computer that could play it. A few months later, I did purchase a laptop with low-end dedicated graphics that could in fact run the game, but not at a decent resolution and with shadows enabled, when I tried out the demo that is. The game shadowing is too big a visual feature to give up, and I simply put playing the game on PC on hold, and ended up playing through and beating F.E.A.R on the Xbox 360, where I feel it translated just about perfectly. The only downside was a capped 30 frames per second and having to use a controller. Having a desktop or even laptop with the mobile version of the X1600 XT would have been a massive boost in visuals performance compared to the laptop and its Mobility Radeon X600 graphics that I had. I would at least get my dues with my first PC build in early 2007, which featured the GeForce 8800 GTS 320MB, a card that stomps all over the X1600 XT. The 8800 GTS 320MB was a rather high-end solution in comparison to the X1600 XT's real competition that came in the form of the GeForce 7600 GS and GT that came out in 2006. Trying out F.E.A.R on this X1600 XT has proven to be a pleasant experience, turning out better than I imagined. I figured having only 4 TMUs and 4 ROPs would have been quite hampering to F.E.A.R's performance, but it's also important to note that just like with CPUs, architectures with GPUs can only be truly compared with benchmarks. Also, in consideration we are running on Windows 7, I'd expect a Windows XP system to run this game even better. At least for its launch, the X1600 XT was a great budget gaming solution for anyone wanting an affordable but decent card to play F.E.A.R with. With that conclusion in hand, we'll end things here. Remember to like the video if you enjoyed it and subscribe for more videos like you just saw. Thanks for watching, y'all have a good one.